In the current web, a lot of linguistic data is available online, but typically coming from disconnected resources. For instance, if we look for information about the Spanish term red, meaning computer network, there are many different language resources and web pages that offer linguistic information about it. However, complementary and disconnected. If we will represent such resources by following semantic web techniques, we could link the different resources and access them through a single entry point. And that is one of the benefits of using linked data techniques for linguistic content. For instance, representing such resources using the Lemon model for representing ontology lexical, we could, in that way, we could have a single unified graph that would link all the available linguistic information about red. So, some of the benefits of using linked data for language resources are, on the first place, the possibility of integrate and aggregate them, such resources, by using standards coming from the semantic web. Also, the fact that the links inside these resources are explicitly declared. Data is exposed in a standardized way. It can be accessed by standard means such as SPARQL queries. Also, that allows for improved discovery of data sets and services. We can enrich our resources by linking them to external sources, and we can use agreed vocabularies for representing language content, such as the different models and ontologies that we represent here, that we mention here, Lemon, NIF, or Lexinfo, among some others. So, there's a community of linguists and NLP researchers and semantic web researchers that has acknowledged these benefits and are contributing to the emergence of the so-called linguistic link open data cloud that it is pictured there. It can be accessed in this picture can be accessed in this web address. So this is a set of interconnected data sets containing linguistic information or linguistically relevant information. This picture illustrates how this cloud has continuously evolved along the recent years. And we can mention just a few projects and initiatives that are supporting the evolution of this cloud. In the first place, the working group on open data in linguistics from the Open Knowledge Foundation. This is where the initial idea of drawing this cloud emerged. There were also other community groups from W3C that contributed with best practices, identifying use cases, and elaborating also models. There has been recent European projects such as the LEADER project that has contributed a lot by creating new resources as linked data and also by identifying guidelines and best practices for it. In the second part of this lesson, we just briefly mention some examples, a few examples of resources that are already in this cloud as linked data, and in order to identify some of the benefits of it. Let's mention then a couple of examples. First of all, we can start with Apertium RDF. Apertium RDF is based on Apertium, an open source platform for machine translation. The collection of bilingual dictionaries in which such platform is based have been migrated into the linked data format by following the Lemon model, and it is what we call the Apertium RDF. Just as a quick example of how the RDF version of these translations and bilingual dictionaries, how they look like in the new linked database based version. Let's have a quick look at this example. When we migrated the English-Spanish dictionary, two lexicons were created, one for English, one for Spanish. And for instance, we can see the word bank and bench in English that are linked by a translation relation to banco and other lexical entries. And these translations are part of what we call the translation set. That contains also relations, translations among other terms. So the idea is that when a new dictionary was migrated into this unified graph, for instance, the English-Catalan dictionary, the URIs, the Uniform Resource Identifiers for the English terms were reused for this new dictionary. So new translations were created in the translation set and new entries in the lexicon in Catalan, but the lexical entries in English were reused to that end. So as a result, we have a unified graph with all the lexical entries, all the lexical senses, and all the translations. And now we can traverse the graph from one language to another that were initially disconnected in the original pertinent dictionaries. For instance, we can traverse from banco in Spanish into banco in Catalan, into bank in Catalan, sorry, because using English as pivot language. So exploiting the fact that now all this information is part of a single unified graph. This is a picture of the different lexicons in the new Apertium RDF graph and how they are connected. Secondly, we mentioned yet another example of a resource represented as linked data, linguistic linked data. In this case, it's BabelNet, a very large encyclopedic resource, a multilingual semantic network, which aggregates information coming from many different sources such as Wikipedia, WordNet, Omega Wiki, Wiktionary, and so on. And comes with a set of applications that exploit such a semantic network for information search, for words and disambiguation, etc. So the thing is that the core linguistic information in BabelNet is also represented as linked data, using also the Lemon model, and it is accessible as well using the standard semantic web mechanisms. One of these applications I mentioned that are built around on top of BabelNet is BabelFi, which is intended to perform word search disambiguation. So it annotates semantically possible senses with descriptions, semantic descriptions coming from BabelNet. The thing is that the semantic annotation of this text can be also exported using semantic web formats. Finally, in this brief overview of a few linguistic linked database systems, we will mention LinkHub, which is an application that aggregates metadata of language resources using semantic web techniques in order to allow their discovery and later exploitation. In this web address, you can access to the web interface and get more real-time information about the LinkHub. To finish this lesson, I show here a list of different web pages where you can get additional information about the topic.